Hello, I'm Bakhtiar Sanova and you're watching A News. Now let's take a look at today's top stories. Violent clashes erupted in Mexico City as protesters denounced security lapses and corruption. A step closer to Palestinian statehood after a UN resolution advancing peace in Gaza wins backing from the United States. And Azerbaijan was accepted to Central Asian Cooperation Format, transforming it into C6. A large protest against insecurity and government corruption turned violent in Mexico City on Saturday. The protest, which drew broad support from older opposition voters as well, included calls for greater government accountability and political change.
Thousands of people have rallied across Mexico, protesting against growing crime, corruption, and impunity. The demonstration was organized by members of Generation Z, but ended with strong backing from older supporters of opposition parties. At least 120 people, mostly police officers, were injured as thousands marched through Mexico City. In Mexico, many young people say they are increasingly frustrated by systemic problems, particularly corruption and impunity surrounding violent crime. Demonstrators demand the resignation of the current ruling party, as well as Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum.
What I would like is for the government to stop being so permissive with crime and drug trafficking, to control them, and to stop extorting people.
We are not here to protest for lunch. No one paid us. We are here of our own free will. We love Mexico, and we are tired.
Another main focus of protest is Carlos Manzo, former mayor of Michoacán state in Mexico. He was shot dead in the city center on November 1st while he attended a Day of the Dead festival. He was known for speaking openly about drug trafficking gangs in his town and cartel violence.
We came because of what happened to Carlos Manzo. For me, this is living proof that people have woken up. We cannot be in the hands of a country ruled by crime. No more, no more. I think this is the limit.
The protest in Mexico City forms part of a broader wave of Gen Z-led demonstrations around the world this year. Movements driven by young people, born between the late 1990s and early 2010s, have erupted in several countries. Recently, largest Gen Z protests took place in Nepal in September, following a ban on social media, and led to former Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli's resignation. Madagascar also saw major protests that month, initially driven by severe, prolonged water and electricity shortages that exposed wider government failures and corruption.
Chileans vote on Sunday in their first compulsory election since 2012. Alongside choosing a new president, they will also renew much of Congress, a result that could shift the country's political direction. The race is split between a left-wing frontrunner and several right-wing and liberation challengers. With no clear majority expected, a runoff in December looks likely.
Chileans are heading to the polls on Sunday for a presidential election, marking the first mandatory vote since 2012. Around 15 to 16 million citizens are eligible to vote, including a large number of first-time and younger voters. Citizens who fail to vote without a valid excuse face fines. The presidential election comes alongside a full renewal of the 155-member lower house of Congress and 23 of the 50 Senate seats. The outcome could reshape Chile's legislative balance and influence future constitutional reforms. the presidential race pits the governing leftist coalition against a field of right-wing and libertarian candidates. Leading the polls is Janet Jara of the Communist Party, representing the leftist coalition. Her campaign focuses on labor rights, security, and expanding Chile's lithium and copper industries. Right-wing candidates include José Antonio Cast, a former three-time presidential contender, emphasizing immigration controls and security. Johannes Kaiser, a libertarian candidate advocating border closures, state spending cuts, and leaving the Paris Agreement. And Evelyn Matthey, a moderate conservative and former Labour minister with a focus on economic and security issues. Crime and immigration have emerged as key voter concerns in the campaign. Analysts note that younger voters are seen as unpredictable, less ideological, and more focused on practical issues. The election follows a history of low voter turnout in Chile. In the first round of the 2021 presidential election, the abstention rate was 53%. The mandatory vote is intended to increase participation, particularly among younger generations. Experts suggest that no candidate is expected to secure an outright majority, which is likely to trigger a runoff on the 14th of December. The legislative vote could also reshape Chile's Congress. If right-wing candidates win the presidency and secure majorities in both chambers, it would mark the first time since the end of the Pinochet's rule in 1990 that the right controls the executive and legislative branches, potentially enabling significant policy or constitutional changes.
The United States, along with several countries in Asia and the Middle East, has voiced support for a UN Security Council resolution aimed at advancing peace in Gaza. The resolution is seen as a historic step toward Palestinian self-determination. Meanwhile, U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff is planning to meet with Hamas chief negotiator Khalil al-Hayya, highlighting Washington's continued involvement in efforts to resolve the conflict.
The United States, Qatar, Egypt, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, Pakistan, Jordan and Turkey have voiced their support for a UN Security Council resolution currently under discussion, drafted by Washington in coordination with regional partners. The statement highlights that the comprehensive plan to end the Gaza conflict, announced on the 29th of September and later endorsed in Sharm el-Sheikh, is being recognized as a historic step and is formally backed by the resolution. The countries stress that the process paves the way for Palestinian self-determination and statehood, describing the initiative as a genuine effort that offers a realistic path toward peace and stability, not only between Israelis and Palestinians, but for the wider region. They also expressed hope that the resolution will be adopted swiftly. As regional backing for the proposal widens, attention has returned to earlier discussions suggesting that Indonesia, Azerbaijan and Pakistan could contribute to a future stabilization force in Gaza, an idea first reported by Politico. The talks were exploratory, but they placed the three countries within the wider debate over who may help secure Gaza. Once a ceasefire takes hold, reliable sources had told A News that Azerbaijan's stance remains firm, coordinating closely with the Organization of Islamic Cooperation and the Arab League, and insisting that any role must rest on international legitimacy, a clear UN Security Council mandate, and a unified Arab position on Gaza's political and security future. Palestine welcomed this joint statement, emphasizing the importance of an Israeli withdrawal from Gaza and reiterating its readiness to assume full responsibility in the territory. Meanwhile, US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff plans to meet soon with Hamas chief negotiator Khalil al-Hayya, according to a report published Friday. The date for the meeting has not been finalized.
U.S. President Donald Trump said that he intends to sue the BBC next week for up to $5 billion, claiming the broadcaster wrongly edited a clip of one of his speeches. The BBC has apologized and admitted the edit was a mistake and says it will not broadcast the documentary again. Yet it maintains that Trump has no grounds for a defamation case.
Well, we'll sue them. We'll sue them for anywhere between $1 billion and $5 billion, probably sometime next week. See, well, I think I have to do it. I mean, they've even admitted that they cheated. I mean, not that they couldn't have not done that. They cheated. They changed the words coming out of my mouth.
Following President Donald Trump's decision to drop the 10% tariffs on Australian food products, Australia says the change is in the country's best interest. Officials say the easing of restrictions will benefit both consumers and producers.
Australia has welcomed US President Donald Trump's decision to roll back tariffs on beef, calling it a positive step for the country's producers. Trump on Friday removed tariffs on more than 200 food products, including beef, following concerns among US consumers about rising grocery prices. The exemptions represent a sharp shift for Trump, who has long argued his import duties were not contributing to inflation. Australia's Foreign Minister Penny Wong acknowledged the benefits of the reduced levies, but did not address expectations that Trump will also unwind the 50% tariffs on Australian steel and aluminium exports to the United States.
We welcome the lifting of these tariffs. That's a good thing for Australian beef producers. We maintain a clear, consistent position. We do not support tariffs. We believe in being able to access each other's markets. We think that's in the best interests of consumers as well as of producers.
Meat was Australia's second largest export to the US last year, behind only non-monetary gold. Australia has shipped up to 400,000 tonnes of beef annually to the US since 1990, where it is widely used by fast food chains. Since Trump's tariff regime took effect in April, Australian producers have faced a 10% export duty on most goods. Friday's order followed framework trade agreements announced on Thursday, which will also remove tariffs on selected foods and other imports from Argentina, Ecuador, Guatemala and El Salvador.
On global tariffs, Switzerland scores a win. The United States will sharply cut tariffs on Swiss goods, protecting the economy and supporting exporters. In return, Swiss firms will invest in American pharmaceuticals, chemicals, gold and semiconductors.
The United States will cut tariffs on Swiss goods from 39% to 15% under a new trade deal that Swiss economists say removes a major threat to the country's economy and offers a clear boost to industry. In exchange, Switzerland will pour $200 billion into the US by 2028, with investments stretching across pharmaceutical products, certain chemicals, gold and semiconductors. Speaking about tariffs talks with Switzerland, US President highlighted ongoing efforts to address trade issues.
We hit Switzerland very hard. We want Switzerland to remain successful, and we're a part of Switzerland in the sense that they've been a very good ally. We're working on them and some others, and we're working on others to increase them a little bit too.
US Trade Representative Jameson Greer said the agreement tears down long-standing barriers and opens new opportunities for American exporters. Switzerland's Economy Minister Guy Parmelin said in a press conference nearly all issues had been resolved, though full details would be shared once everything is finally clear.
This represents an important step for our exporting companies and for the stability of our trade relations. First, the United States has agreed to reduce the level of additional tariffs. For Switzerland, these tariffs will now be capped at 15%, which, as I have said, puts us on an equal footing with the European Union.
Swiss industry groups, who reported sharp falls in exports this year, say the deal should help stabilize growth and safeguard jobs. A Swiss government statement said the agreement will also reduce Swiss import duties on selected US agricultural and industrial goods, including fish, seafood and non-sensitive farm products. Moreover, the deal will further open Switzerland's market, granting duty-free quotas for US beef, bison and poultry, while lowering duties on additional industrial goods. Both sides aim to finalize the wider trade framework by early 2026, marking a significant step in strengthening ties after months of strained negotiations.
British Interior Minister Shabana Mahmood is expected to set out sweeping reforms to the migration system on Monday, seeking to follow Denmark in making Britain less attractive to asylum seekers. The proposed reforms include 20-year waiting for permanent settlement for asylum seekers and the reduction in initial refugee leave. The Home Office has described the reforms as the most significant change in the treatment of refugees since the Second World War. Home Secretary Mahmood has defended the plans, stating that measures aim to deter illegal migration and unite the country amidst growing public concern. The Democratic Republic of Congo and the M23 rebel group have signed a new framework for peace in Doha after a month of Qatar-led mediation supported by the United States and the African Union. The deal comes after earlier ceasefires collapsed, with both sides accused of violations. Mediators say the new framework includes stronger monitoring to avoid another breakdown. M23, a Rwanda-backed armed group that seized major cities earlier this year, has driven one of the region's worst humanitarian crises, killing thousands and displacing hundreds of thousands. Qatar's chief negotiator called the deal historic, but said that peace depends on how it's implemented on the ground. Hundreds of Sudanese have fled the Darfur city of Al Fasher, arriving at the UNHCR camp in Tawila. The displaced are setting up tents and shelters after escaping severe food shortages and violence. Humanitarian assessments warn that access to water and sanitation in the camps remains extremely limited, highlighting the scale of Sudan's ongoing crisis.
In Sudan, hundreds of residents fleeing escalating violence in the Darfur city of Al Fasher arrived at a UNHCR camp in the town of Tawila. The newly displaced registered at the site before setting up tents and makeshift shelters, having escaped severe hunger and insecurity in Al Fasher. A recent assessment in Tawila showed that even before the latest influx, only 10% of people living in the camps had reliable access to drinking water, while access to latrines and sanitation facilities remained even more limited. The new arrivals are placing additional pressure on already overstretched services. Sudan's conflict, which began in April 2023 between the Sudanese Armed Forces and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, has been described by the UN as the world's largest humanitarian crisis. As of mid-October, an estimated 12.5 million Sudanese have been displaced within and beyond the country's borders, the highest number of displaced people anywhere in the world. Following recent RSF attacks in Al Fasher and across the Kordofan region, a further 140,000 people have been forced to flee their homes.
To Brazil's Belém now, where during the COP30 summit, Azerbaijan presented its latest urban and climate priorities, building on initiatives launched at COP29 in Baku. The key update was the Baku Sustainability Coalition now moving into a formal operational phase. Anar Guliev spoke to A News on the sidelines of the summit.
At COP29 in Baku, we launched the Multi-Level Action Pathway Initiative, which led to the creation of the Baku Sustainability Coalition, together with Egypt, the UAE and Brazil. Here at COP30, we are holding its first institutional meeting. The Coalition's charter has been submitted to member states, and we will now open it to all countries that have hosted COP or the World Urban Forum.
Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev has confirmed the country's admission into the Central Asian format, a move that promises to have significance on the global stage. Our Andy Mioch has more from Tashkent.
We're coming to you from Tashkent with some major regional news. Azerbaijan has been admitted into the Central Asia format, changing the C5 into a C6. Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev confirmed Baku's full membership in the consultative meetings of Central Asia format in a speech here at the weekend summit in the Uzbek capital. Other regional leaders hailed Azerbaijan's membership as a historic decision, with the host, the Uzbek President Shavkat Mirziyoyev, saying that with Azerbaijan joining, the voice of the region will have way more significance on the global stage. Now, this is something new for this format that was launched in 2017, and we're also expecting during the day that the leaders will adopt a package of multilateral agreements to further deepen regional cooperation. Now, that cooperation, ever since 2017 and the launch of the format, has yielded some pretty major results. We've seen a long-standing border dispute in Central Asia resolved. We've seen several deals on water resources management reached, as well as the easing of border crossings for regular people and goods. When it comes to the global impact of not only this regional cooperation, but the trade that happens within Central Asia and the South Caucasus, there are major trade corridors connecting East and West, China and the European Union, and these routes go through here. Now, the middle corridor, the one connecting China to the EU, has expanded very rapidly in recent years. Just in 2024 alone, we've seen the volumes of cargo transported along the route being increased by more than 60% and reaching 4.5 million tons. Now, that growth was, of course, accompanied by investments into infrastructure, into construction and modernization of railway, ports, and ferry fleets. Now, this is all I can tell you for now from Tashkent, but we'll be with you soon with new information. From Tashkent for A News, Andy Miuch.
Azerbaijan has been admitted into the Central Asia format, transforming it from C5 to C6 format, making it one of the most important developments in recent history. The move broadens the opportunities for Azerbaijan and Central Asian states, paving way for a more fruitful cooperation in the future.
Azerbaijan has been granted full membership status in the Central Asia consultative meetings, marking a significant step in regional cooperation. The decision to this effect was made at the 7th Central Asian Consultative Meeting. With the admission of Azerbaijan to the Central Asian format, the country composition of the format increases to 6. From now on, alongside Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan, Azerbaijan is also part of the format. Azerbaijan and the countries of Central Asia are united within the framework of a single regional format. From now on, Azerbaijan will participate in meetings held within the framework of Central Asia. The admission expands regional cooperation and reinforces Azerbaijan's position as a key partner in Central Asia's economic and strategic development. Historical, cultural, spiritual ties between countries are becoming a political center. With Azerbaijan on board, Central Asian states can coordinate more closely on issues like energy security, transportation, climate resilience, and digitalization. During the summit, the president of Kyrgyzstan, Sadir Japarov, stated that Azerbaijan's accession to the consultative meeting format opens new strategic horizons for the Central Asian countries, particularly in the areas of transit, logistics, and regional economic integration, creating opportunities to deepen mutually beneficial cooperation. Analysts say that this development means that Azerbaijan will work even more closely with the Central Asian states, while remaining a key actor in the South Caucasus. By becoming more integrated in regional affairs in both the South Caucasus and Central Asia, Azerbaijan will become an important player in linking these two strategically aligned regions. Baku elevates its geopolitical standing by formally embedding itself in a Central Asian structure. This strengthens its leadership role in the broader Turkic world and expands its diplomatic reach beyond the South Caucasus.
At the Azerbaijan-Iran border, Astara customs authorities have intercepted a large shipment of heroin destined for Europe. The drugs, concealed in a consignment labeled as the tile adhesive, weighed approximately 456.8 kilograms. Officials say the seizure has removed over $90 million worth of narcotics from illegal circulation.
At the Azerbaijan-Iran border, authorities at Astara Customs have seized a large shipment of heroin bound for Europe, removing the drugs from illegal circulation. The consignment, labelled as tile adhesive and transported via Azerbaijan from Iran to Estonia, was stopped at the Astara railway customs post and inspected using a stationary X-ray scanner. Suspicious markings prompted a thorough examination with the assistance of a sniffer dog. During the check, 44 out of 3,250 bags were found to contain heroin, with a total estimated weight of approximately 456.8 kilograms. The street value of the seized drugs in Europe is reported to exceed $90 million. Investigations into the case are ongoing.
Energy ministers from Azerbaijan, Georgia, Hungary and Romania met in Tbilisi to discuss the Caspian Black Sea Europe Green Energy Corridor. They said the detailed study needed to move the plan forward will be finished by early 2026. The project has also been added to a key European plan network, an important step that could help it receive official EU support. The ministers also agreed to connect this project with a separate plan to lay a long electricity cable under the Black Sea, and said the next stage will focus on preparing for investment and construction. After more than 4 decades of searching, archaeologists have uncovered a long-lost temple of Zeus in southwestern Turkey. The discovery sheds new light on the ancient city of Limyra.
Archaeologists have found the Temple of Zeus in Limyra, located in Antalya along the Turkish Riviera. Excavations have been ongoing since 1982, and the site had remained hidden despite historical records confirming it. The temple's front facade measures 15 metres wide, and a sacred chamber lies beneath an orange grove outside the ancient city wall. Ceramics recovered at the site suggest the city dates back 5,000 years. Researchers say the monumental gate known as the Propylon, previously identified under the Roman street, once led to the temple's sacred area. The discovery is prompting experts to reconsider earlier ideas about the layout of Limyra. Excavations will continue after expropriation work, as archaeologists hope to uncover more of the classical era site.
That's all we have for now. Thank you for joining and stay tuned to A News for more.